Hello listeners, it's Mark here with another SLP show, an impromptu SLP show, as we were testing out recording the multi-host show for the grand final, and we decided to have a little bit of chat about the Man of Steel. It became a bit more structured as we went along and decided we were going to share it with you guys. So I hope you enjoy. This is me, Alan and Tim talking about the Man of Steel Awards nominations.
We talk about the hilarity of the Man of Steel.
That's what I was going to say we should talk about, yeah.
Annoying, I haven't got my think tank because I started doing a spreadsheet. I started playing around with it and manipulating and having a little bit of a play.
Okay. I have to say I've only seen the odd kind of captured tweet of the ridiculous Catalan Dragon selections, but I haven't seen anything other than that. So I'll let you lead the conversation.
Well, I picked out 22 of the 280 odd players. I picked out 22 that I think are frankly ridiculous, and that was with me being generous. Like, that was me letting people get away with nominating players that ended up playing in the qualifiers as their Man of Steel choice. But I still picked 22 out of that were total nonsense, and 13 of them were Catalan Dragons players.
Were they as good as Danny Addy? That's
well, there was one.
Favourite.
There was one where they voted for. That was what I think supposed to be Chris Ack, but he'd spelt it completely wrong. Chris Aitken.
But Balmer, absolute favourites. He went with Chris Aitken, Theo Farge, and Leroy Cudjoe. Now, Leroy Cudjoe played about 6 games this year.
I want to know who Lewis Tierney put as his first and second choice that they had to redact.
Well, I think he just didn't choose
just
first
not
and second
choose
choices, or they couldn't read his handwriting or something.
Or do you think he got confused between 1 and 3?
Maybe. One of them that'll slide under the radar, is Dom Crosby's. Now, Dom Crosby went for Jack Hughes, Sam Powell, and Liam Farrell.
That's a random stuff.
But it's obvious when you think about it. I mean, Jack Hughes and him were best mates at each other's weddings.
Yeah.
Then he came through at Wigan at the same time as Hughes and Powell, so they're mates from back then.
Yeah.
Ash Handley's are particularly special. Robbie Mulhern, Alex Foster, and John Bateman.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it?
Who was it that went? There was someone who just went for hookers, and I can't remember who it was now. I remember looking for it earlier, and all they did was they just chose hookers.
I didn't pick that one out, but Jason Battieri went for Greg Burke, Jake Bibby, and Craig fucking Horn. He played one Super League game. And I don't even know if he's ever met any of those blokes. That's the weird part about that one.
It's like an art form, isn't it? I mean, but having said that though, I mean, I can't. Obviously it gets a good laugh and everything, but any other method of choosing it, if you'd gone like a fan way or anything like that, you'd be full of the same kind of crap, wouldn't it? If people picking ridiculous choices and stuff.
I don't think that as many people would have picked Hakeem Meludi and Romain Navarrete.
Navarrete was the second most voted prop.
He got 11 votes in total across the 3, first, second and third, all of them from Catalan Dragons players.
He's clearly popular with the rest of the French. Sammy Kabulas were quite fun. Ben Barber, Drake Truman, and Sam Mower.
Well, yeah, but Sam Mower had a couple of really good games against Wigan, and actually, I think like Wigan, Shawnoff of Wigan Fan TV voted for Sam Mower as his second prop alongside Thompson, I think, in his dream team as well. So I feel like that's a bias of what you've seen.
Yeah.
And therefore I wouldn't write it off as being as ridiculous as, say, Greg Bird going for Albert Kelly, Kristen Inu and John Horrow, or
Michael McAlorum is still popular at Wigan.
Very much so, but he was also very popular at Leeds. He got a lot of votes from Leeds. Rob Fairclough of St Helens, right? Tony Gigo, Jez Litton, Josh Charnley. Jez Litton! Where's that come from?
Oh, man.
Aaron Murphy's of Huddersfield is got a good one. Jody Broughton, Jamie Ellis, and Tony Mullally.
Yeah, Anthony Malali got a few third choice votes. Nick Scruton went for him as well. Well, Jamie Ellis second choice.
Well, I defend Aaron Murphy because he's had 3 or 4 concussions this year, so he's probably not quite entirely with us still, is he? But yeah.
I think we have to pick a worst choice of the Remain Navrat Hakim Maludi group, and it's who's got the worst third choice, because there was a few that had Theo Farge or Morgan Escaray, but Alrix da Costa went Joe Philbin as his third, whereas Mikael Gudmont rescued it with John Bateman. It was Mikael Simon who went Danny Addy. I'm not even sure they've ever met.
How many minutes did Danny Addy play in actual Super League?
Zero.
He got injured in pre-season.
He got injured in that warm-up, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah,
I wasn't sure if it was warm-up or a cup, but yeah.
Here's a really interesting one for you as well.
Absolutely nothing.
Salford Red Devils is Ryan Lannon. He went for Ben Barber.
Yep.
Totally, fair enough. Darryl Clark, I'd say fair enough. Darryl Clark was fantastic, yeah. Not a bad shout. Jake Shorrocks. Now, Jake Shorrocks only played for Salford Red Devils. So how could a Salford Red Devils player be allowed to pick Jake Shorrocks, who only played for the Salford Red Devils? Similarly, Corey Aston, who managed to get a pick even though he hasn't appeared at Castleford and is no longer on their books as far as I'm aware, picked Matty Lees as one of his choices, who he played with at Sheffield.
Needs to be filtering out, I think. Anyway.
Do you have a vote for absolute worst then, Tim? Because I have a vote for absolute worst, and we haven't talked about it yet.
Oh, see, unless this all my work can be... Toby King, I think, has got to be there.
Louis Senior, Jake Truman, fair enough, Jake Truman. I wouldn't argue with Jake Truman being one of your 3 choices, but Louis Senior first choice and Sam Wilde third choice. Just unbelievable. I mean, most of the piss take ones have been either from Aussie players or from French players. To be fair, so maybe a lot of them don't attach the same sort of significance to the name Steve Prescott and the Steve Prescott story, but
McGrath Luluite as entertaining as ever. Crystal, Dominic, Peyroux, and W.
That's not that awful.
It's random though. It's not.
Well, Alex Foss, Robbie Mulhern, Ash Handley, Tommy Makinson.
Yeah, that's got to be there.
I mean, we're laughing about it, and it is quite funny and entertaining, but there's a serious side to it.
Oh, Gavin Benyon. Have you seen his?
Yeah, it's your mate. Is he Welsh or something, Benyon?
Yeah, Benyon's Welsh. It's the French bloke and the Welsh bloke, apart from Kopchak ignored it because he's more sensible, but Benyon is Welsh.
Yeah, I thought I'd let that one slide. Sorry, there was one where Regan Grace was voted, I think, in the second place from Levy and Zungu. He had James Roby, obviously, fair enough. Regan Grace and then Fuad Yaha. That was, I thought I'd go as him being in the second place rather than first place, I suppose.
Oh, Joel Moons.
Yes, Joel Moon was one that was a little bit question marky. It was all his old Aussie mates. There was another one.
Danny Maguire, Robert Louis, and Mead.
There was another one Greg Birdo I already mentioned went for all with a coast, I think. Greg Birdo went for Albert Kelly and Neil Sorrow.
That was it, yeah.
There was another one as well that was very similar to that sort of, and that one's not on my list of absolutely hard ones, so it must have cut out. The person they picked must have been reasonably well.
Oh dear.
Seriously though, Alan, you said it's a different way of doing it. What would you suggest as a different way of doing it? That means we don't get Nathaniel Petterou voting for Dan Sargent and Dominic Peyroux and Carlos Tumavave.
I don't think he spelled Carlos Tumavave right, did he?
He did? Congratulations to him. Yeah, but sorry, Al, what do you think's a different way of doing it, mate?
I don't know if there is a different... I mean, this is where the kind of the issue about the... Sorry, this is a slight tangent, but I'll run down it anyway. In terms of the way that some of the criticism around Barber and that kind of stuff is there's something around the way that we pitch as a man, and that doesn't kind of, there's a bit of a disconnect there between the best player and kind of like the toughest or the most contributing player. Because you can't even do it like, you come down to a short list per team and then you kind of go with a list of 12 because quite accurately you might have more than one candidate from one team, might you? So
I would I would go with. How do you think this is an idea? The coaches vote, and they pick one player from each opposition team. All the coaches.
Yeah.
Right, and then that's your short list. So the players can only. So then the players vote only on the players named by the coaches.
All right. Okay. So there might be a list of 30, 40 names possibly.
It could be a list of that many. It could be a list of be a list of like 20, couldn't it? Thinking about it, and then the players vote on that.
That would make a lot more sense, because then you've filtered it, and it would mean that the effects of any joke selections would be lessened, unless you'd have to get then coaches and players colluding to actually manipulate it. Have to get on the list in the first place.
Do you have any other ideas, Tim?
Well, I would actually change the name of it, and I'd split it out into 2 awards. So have a player of the year, and then keep the Man of Steel as something separate.
See, this is what we had before, in a way. But do you think that we just need to own rather than saying do you think, I'll tell you what I think. I think we should just own the Man of Steel as the best player. That's what it is. It's our Player of the Year award. Dally M doesn't mean anything really. It doesn't mean like the
most liked Dally Messenger.
It doesn't mean Player of the Year until you make it the Player of the Year, your Player of the Year award. So Man of Steel, although people want to fixate on what embodies a Man of Steel, I've just kind of grown up thinking Man of Steel is the best player in the competition, and that's as simple as it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because the Aussies for AFL, they call it the best and fairest, don't they? So they change the meaning of it in that.
Oh well, because everybody participating in the competition, other than maybe Willie Heiser, won't allow to be on the list.
I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the early kind of winners, and I think some of the early winners have altered the way or kind of shaped the way we perceive Man of Steel. So I think like Val's who won it, who were probably not the best player, but they were the epitome of kind of leading the team from the front type players.
Yeah, but that year Cass had a great season for themselves.
Yeah. I just like the player's personality really, rather than. Of
course, in previous years, wasn't it basically the person who had the most influence on the most influence on a season than a coach win the Man of Steel once?
Yeah, I think it's because they had to be selected from the other awards, so they had to have been either the top meter maker, Coach of the Year, Player of the Year, etc. They had to have qualified to get there.
Yeah. Whereas we've been using a different format for. I think this is the 10th thing you see if you've seen media figures hijacked the fact that the award should have gone to Trent Barrett in 2000. I think we'll blow up how James Roby played that season, because people have talked a lot about he was only a 40-minute player and whatnot, but I've pulled it out a lot of times that actually stayed on the field for 60 minutes quite a lot of times, because him and Cunningham spent a lot of time where they were both on the field during that campaign for them. The winners of the Man of Steel, so there was George Fairbairn, who was a fullback who won it in 1980. That was the 4th year of award. There was halfbacks who won it along the way, like Alan Agar, and there was Joe Lydon, of course, who was a classy player. Ellery Hanley, you could give him it for he won it a number of times. But I'm not sure. I think it possibly, like you say, Al, might have been around that time where it was Vowles, it was Sculthorpe, it was Peacock, it was Farrell, and they were kind of the players who were winning it, and they embodied everything you wanted to see.
Yeah, because I think the way that it changed slightly with the start of Super League, in the way that it was kind of branded. I think was it always called Man of Steel, even back like to the 80s and stuff?
It was.
Oh, right, okay. I didn't know that.
Because Gary Schofield talks about how he won the Man of Steel. That was in 1991. It was just there was also a Players' Player of the Year award at the same time at that stage.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's therefore you could pick out your